I don't know about galvanizing, but I do know this, that it's clear to all of us, to everybody involved, that we're only doing this together.
All right, welcome in. That was Phil Martelli, Michigan associate head coach, now Coach Martelli here for the last 5 games. Welcome in, Maize and Blue Review. Afternoon live here every day at 1 o'clock, and it is great. You see him there on the small screen, but let's get him up there so you can take a look at him. Brandon Justice, the senior editor of the Maize and Blue Review. What's going on, Justice? You all right?
Yeah, I'm doing good. I got my booster today, and so I'm feeling a little bit knocked, I guess, and yeah, just enjoying that and handling that at a 4-hour doctor trip today. So that was great. How are you doing?
You look okay. I was interested in yesterday. It was an in-person media session, right, with Phil Martelli there, and that must have been. Did you go to that?
Yeah, so that was around. I think it started at 1 o'clock. Got there about 12:45, and yeah, it was. Phil Martelli was talking for probably about a half hour, I would say. Right around. I think it was right around 30 minutes on the dot, and commanded the room well. I'm actually working on a piece right now that'll be coming out later today around that press conference and how he handled it. And he really made it clear that he knows he's the guy for this job, and he knows it, and he doesn't mean it in a arrogant way, but like Phil Martelli's resume is probably more impressive than 9 out of 10s in this industry, this coaching industry. So yeah, I mean he commanded the room really well, handled the press conference really well, and it was funny because when he walked in the room, the first thing he said was there was a media member walking him in from Michigan's media team, asking him if they needed to stay around. And he looked right at her and was like, no, I've done a million of these. Like, I know what I'm doing. We'll be good. So from the jump, he commanded the room.
Well, since Sunday, Michigan's been top news. It's always top news at the Maize and Blue Review, but it's been top of the news nationally here. But people do wonder when you put Martelli in there, what the difference will be. What would you say? I mean, he's, you mentioned it, 24 seasons as head coach at St. Joe. So he's been around the block a little bit, but what difference do you think it'll make tonight?
He made this clear yesterday with this statement. He said, I'm not Juwan Howard. And he said that several times if you've watched the footage. And he is really putting that at the forefront of this job he's doing right now, is that he's going to be himself as a coach. What he really mentioned a lot was how Juwan is a very offensive-minded coach, and Phil Martelli is not. And he's not going to become an offensive-minded coach because Juwan is, right? He's not Juwan. So he's going to coach like Phil coached for, the plenty of the 2 decades he coached for as a head coach at St. Joe. So, yeah, I think that's the number one thing that you'll see a difference in is with Juwan. This team was far more operative offensively, and with Phil, there might be a little bit more balance there. I mean, I'm not a basketball expert. I've made this clear on the show plenty of times, Dennis, as you know. I am very open and blunt about my basketball knowledge being, middle of the area when it comes to strategy. But what I can tell you is Phil's leadership is going to not get up to Juwan's, because how Phil sees Juwan is this. He's described him as a monster. He just commands a room. But what we believe as outsiders is that Phil is probably as good of a leader in this game that there is. So, yeah, I think that the differences you'll see would probably be what he mentioned with the offense not being, what's as prolific as it is with Juwan, but maybe more balanced attack, maybe more tempo, less tempo. You might see something there offensively that changes because their 2 offensive beliefs are different.
When you see a player and a big-time player miss a game for a team, it usually follows. It doesn't happen every time, but, it happens enough where you see it where a team will lose a star player. And for one game, the team is really able to, take up for that player and maybe in some cases play better. And, then it kind of, you feel it where you lose the player. Well, Michigan's not going to have 2 players. And one of their star players, I think their second best player here as of like the last 2 weeks, and Moussa Diabate, I think that they should be able to replace him tonight. But you go to the bench and you start with Brandon Johns. And, Johns, if you go over, his play all the way back to the beginning of the year, I don't know how much of tape that you would bring up and say, hey, this is the Brandon Johns that you really want. It would be a great time to see him step up and be the guy that came in for Isaiah Livers last year because he played really well, including,
Right.
having 14 in the tournament against Florida State. What are your thoughts there?
Yeah, and again, just going back to what Phil Martelli said, he said last night that, or yesterday afternoon, that Brandon Johns can't go out there and try to emulate Moussa Diabate. They're two different players, two different people, and that's why when I said that at the forefront, I think of this whole thing for Phil Martelli is to be himself, is because he can't be Juwan, and he doesn't want Brandon Johns to try and be Moussa, and there's just got to be you got to be yourself, and that's what he's encouraging Brandon Johns to do. Excuse me. So what I think is going to be the product of all of this is that maybe Phil's connection with Brandon and that approach he's taking, it motivates him. It's a great opportunity for Brandon Johns to turn around what's been not a great season. And as you mentioned, he's shown the upside before to be a difference maker on the floor. And really, he's taken over games at times in the past. Not really so much this year, though. And with this opportunity, maybe this catapults his game. We see this a ton with athletes. In moments like this, they're either going to take advantage of it and Jeremy Lin it, or they're not going to do much with it and Jamarcus Russell it. We don't know how it's going to be. But I think there's an opportunity here for Brandon Johns. And we know he can be the player that he needs to be in this spot because he's done it in the past. So it's a great question, Dennis. I think I think that might be your storyline of tonight's outcome, is what they get out of him.
You know what? I think you're right about that. And then the storyline becomes, no matter how Michigan plays, Phil Martelli, even though you just went through it, whether or not, his coaching decisions or anything else. Of course, if it's coming down in the final 2 minutes and he does something unconventional, like, I don't know, like a unconventional would be, playing a lineup with like Jace Howard and, Darren Falls, and you'd say, wow, that's way different than what, Juwan Howard. And then if it was effective, it'd be like, whoa. Or but the weird part is if the team like shoots well, let's say that, they drop in more threes than you're used to seeing, and they end up coming away with a win, you'll say, and this is the hard part to put a finger on it. I don't even know if I think they'd probably joke around afterwards, like, oh yeah, Martelli, great job. The team shot 50% from downtown, but that is, it's still the specter here of Juwan Howard. It's going to be hanging over, this game, and with Martelli as the coach, no matter what happens, it stays as one of the top stories with this team throughout the rest of these 5 games until he returns.
Yeah, and how this whole thing shakes out is going to be fun to watch, I think, because if Phil goes in there and makes a lot of things happen, then who knows what this team can do. This is I don't want to give too much away of what I'm going to write later on today. It's going to come out, but I will definitely pull back the curtain a bit here. What this team has right now is, I don't want to say blessing in disguise by any means. But I thoroughly believe that in life we're often presented with troubles that can be opportunities. And I think that's exactly what Michigan has here. And that what happened to Juwan and those two players is, wrong on them. It's unfortunate for the program, and you hope it never happens again by all means. But what it is it's a moment in a season that's been disappointing, but still has a heartbeat, which is kind of similar to Brandon Johns, who he's had disappointing season, but all of a sudden he has this opportunity. So I think how they respond to this, and how Phil Martelli, who's the centerpiece of my whole point and what I'm trying to write and convey here in this message, is that Phil Martelli is the perfect guy for this. He's the perfect guy to command your ship right now. This isn't, Sadie Washington's a fantastic coach, right? And he's been at Michigan for a long time, and he'll be here probably as long as he wants to be here. But he doesn't have the head coaching experience and the leadership experience, and being in these moments and NCAA tournament pressure moments like this that Phil Martelli has. In fact, if you go around looking at assistants around the country, you're hard pressed to find any. I don't think you will find any. Can't say it for a fact. I'm in the middle of that research right now. You can't really find many around the country that have that experience as an assistant coach that Phil Martelli has. So yes, like everything that happened in Michigan in these past couple of days has been extremely disappointing for the program. But it still has like this heartbeat in these 5 games and the right guy to lead them there to what could be like a turned around season. You think about the team, the airplane crash team. You think about that team and the momentum that they found there in an unfortunate situation where they had to play in pennies, And so I truly wonder what this can do. Now, this could all be for naught, and it could be they just go 1-3, or they just go 2-3, make the tournament. losing the first round and everybody moves on with their lives. I don't know. But in the event that something happens here, I think you obviously, and I think they will, obviously they'll spin this that way. But regardless, I think you'll have to look back at this moment right now, this today, game day, the first game with this whole, debacle going on, you look at it as like the first moment if they're able to do good things with it. So.
A couple quick hitters for you. I think I was, before I saw the line for today's game, I thought Michigan to be favored by a point or two, so probably a point and a half. But so to see it at 5 was shocking to me. It wasn't shocking what you just said. Michigan, they definitely could go 2-3, but I'm not 100% sure that ends up, getting them into the tournament. You feel pretty good if they would win 2 games and lose 3. You'd feel pretty good about them, maybe getting in that play-in game.
It's funny you said that about the line, and I went and checked, and there is some sharp money on Rutgers. That's about it. There's really nothing coming in on Michigan. The line's moved to 4.5 now, but just a sidebar because you had mentioned it. But yeah, I think they're at the point now where you go 2-3, you feel pretty good. I think so. It depends on which games you're winning, of course. But you're on the bubble 110% and you're watching closely, but I feel like you're going to be listed as a first 4 in more than a last 4 out. But you're hoping to go 3-2. I mean, I think at 3-2 you feel really good. I feel like 3-2 you're pretty solidified. 2-3 you're dancing with fire, but you're still watch the past few last 4 ends. All right, look at the schools that get in. Look at the schools that don't. There's an agenda there. It feels like so. And I feel like Michigan, yes, as arrogant as it may perceive itself, would probably get in at 2-3. Now, 1-4 definitely not. 0-5 obviously not. But I think 3-2 and above, you're probably going to get in, which is pretty fascinating because I mean we were talking on the show a few weeks ago, and it seemed like a really tough thing, a really uphill battle to try and get to there with the schedule they had. But that Purdue win was absolutely monstrous for them. So.
Yeah, Purdue and at Iowa, considering
in Iowa, and Indiana, even Indiana on the road.
State, watching how Iowa's playing right now, that ends up being a nice W for them. You put up the resume, and those losses, like early in the year, Arizona and Seton Hall, like Arizona's a really good team,
Right?
So you start looking at it there. Yeah, I'm not going to hold my breath if they go 2-3. So hopefully it doesn't get to that kind of situation. Yeah. I do think though, with all this controversy around Michigan, that Michigan's profile, anyways, that selection committee, knowing that people's like, whoa, Juwan Howard, free Juwan Howard, getting Michigan in the tournament, making a controversial selection, if it even is that, we'll just have people, it'll be drama. It'll be controversy.
Yes.
And, that works when it comes down to TV. All right, one final thing, and that is some football news, and it just came out this morning or afternoon. Michigan's bringing Shoelace back.
Absolutely.
And let's hear it. In a player personnel role, Denard Robinson coming back to Ann Arbor. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, it's tremendous for the program because Denard Robinson is, in my opinion, really. I read his Players Tribune piece in the fall, the day of the Ohio State game. Not sure if you had the chance to read that. If you haven't, and when you're watching this, definitely go look up Denard Robinson Players Tribune. Awesome story on just how he got to Michigan, hit the aftermath of leaving Michigan and the NFL, and then how he got to where he's at now. So it's really interesting stuff. So Denard Robinson has been coaching for a while now, and he in his Players Tribune piece touched on how he enjoys coaching and all of that. So that's why I reference it. And so with that being said, I mean, reading that and knowing his personality, how well he's very well versed, high IQ guy, and has been since he was in school. And he's going to be a guy that I think fits right into this player personnel role to connect with families around the country that come in and visit. And he'll be able to have that presence because, he's got a legacy, right? Like this guy he was not a flash in the pan. Denard Robinson was a thing around here for quite a few years when things were very bad otherwise. He was the only thing. He was a rose in a bouquet of dead flowers, right? I mean, let's be real. I mean, he was really the only reason they were even competing half the time. So with all that being said, the legacy, how well, I mean, he's not unfit for this job. It's not like they hired, I don't want to say Deion Sanders because he was coaching too, but it's not like they went and hired a former player who's just been sitting on his couch retired for 10 years. I mean, Denard Robinson has been doing this. He's worked his way into a role. He's probably over-deserved for an assistant player personnel role, to be honest. The only thing he doesn't really have is maybe recruiting chops, but he's going to have those naturally. That's his personality. He knows how it works. He's been there, and he walks into a room and he's going to own it because he has that legacy. So I love the hire. I don't think there's anybody out there who's not going to love the hire. If you hate Michigan or love Michigan, I think this is exactly what it needed in its recruiting room, and he'll work extremely well with, I'm assuming he'll be working closely with Albert Karshnia, the director of recruiting. So I think that'll go tremendous.
Yeah, you know that he loves Michigan. You know that he's a team guy. He was a quarterback. Those guys are leaders
Right.
automatically. And I remember, I do remember that story about the Players Tribune, but I do remember him speaking at the Big Ten Media Days.
Mhm.
He was up there, and he did a fabulous job. He spoke so much from the heart. I mean, you watch that, and you're like, let's go.
Yeah.
Like,
Oh, yeah. I mean, he's so genuine and authentic. And it was, I remember when you first started to learn that about him during his craze when he was shoelaces, right? And you didn't, let's be honest, like athletes being humanized wasn't as common then as it is now, even though it was a short time ago. It wasn't as common then as it is now. And, Denard Robinson certainly humanized himself with every press conference, media event he was in back then. And so knowing how genuine and authentic he is, that's what recruiting needs. That's because people are quote unquote woke now when it comes to recruiting. They can read through these things. So when someone walks into your room and it's Denard Robinson, he's genuine, authentic, that stuff plays well. I mean, being genuine and authentic should just be what we all are as people, but let's be real, like that, that plays well in recruiting. So I'm a huge fan of this because Denard as a person is going to blend so well with Denard as a recruiter. Not that he'll be stepping into rooms right now as a director of player personnel, but if he ever gets to that point, which I think is the path he's on, he'll be tremendous. And this is kind of his first chapter.
Well, some of it's manufactured and some of it's natural. I am pulling the shoelaces out of my shoes here for the time being with Denard coming back. And you know what? I might let the side of my hair grow out. Martelli looked pretty good up there. I got to tell you, he was up there talking about let's do this and let's be natural and be yourself. And I was like, you know what? Martelli looks really good. Oh, yeah, man. I like that hairstyle. So, hey, it's never gone away. It's just Martelli's making it happen there. So from that side, let's see how Coach does. Great job, Brandon. We look forward to that story coming up a little bit later on the Maize and Blue review. See there on the bottom how you subscribe and everything else. And thanks for your time and enjoy the game tonight.
Absolutely. Thanks, everybody, for watching.
There he is, Brandon Johnson.